For the last 30 years, you followed a set of rules. Save more, stay invested, ride out the dips, let time do the work. And those rules were right. They got you here. But I'm going to tell you something almost nobody says out loud. The day you retire, most of those rules flip. Time stops being your friend, growth stops being the goal, and doing nothing stops being safe. The plan that carries you to the finish line is not the plan that carries you through it. The 5 years before you retire are where you learn a new rule book, before you're forced to. That's what this series is. And today is not a deep dive into any one piece of it. Today is the map. I'm going to walk you through every rule that's about to flip, when it flips, and which episode goes deep on it. If you're anywhere inside this window, this is the one to start with. I'm Will Hoffman, founder and president of Hoffman Wealth Management. This is Pre-Retirement Navigator. We use what we call the navigation formula, our process for taking you from where you are right now to where you want to be in retirement, step by step, decision by decision. So let me give you the whole map. There are 6 flips. 5 of them happen in the year before you retire, and the last one happens the morning after. Once you see them, the entire 5-year window snaps into focus. The first flip is time goes from being your greatest asset to your biggest constraint. For 30 years, time was the best thing you had going. More time meant more compounding, more room to recover from mistake, more reason to be patient. Just give it time was always the right answer. The moment you start planning your exit, that reverses. Now, time is the thing you're spending down. And the first real decision is admitting how much of it you've got left before the paychecks stop. That's why year 5 starts with a real retirement date, not sometime in my early 60s, a month and a year written down that you then pressure test against the versions where life doesn't cooperate. Once the date is real, everything hangs off of it. A budget that's honest about what your life actually costs, including the lumpy stuff people conveniently leave out, and a hard rethink of how much market risk you can still afford to carry. Even risk flips here. The same drop you'd have happily ridden out at 45 behaves completely differently when you're about to start living off of the account. There's a full episode on year 5, the foundation year. Get this one wrong, and everything downstream tilts with it. Flip 2, the goal goes from growing it to keeping it. The second flip is the goal itself. For your whole working life, the scoreboard was one number pointed in one direction. How big can I make this? And here's what made it easy. Almost every dollar you set aside went in untaxed and just sat there growing, untouched. Retirement flips both halves of that at once. The number that matters is no longer how big the pile is how much of it you actually get to keep after the government takes its cut. The most overlooked ground in the entire window. And not because people don't care, it's because for 30 years, the tax side basically ran itself. Contribute, deduct, you're done. Now, you're the one steering. So year 4 is where you learn to think in tax brackets instead of account balances. Mapping when each stream of income switches on, working out which accounts to draw from, and in which order, so you're not handing over tens of thousands you never had, and finding out whether there's a conversion window. So year 4 is where you learn to think in tax brackets instead of account balances. Mapping out when each stream of income switches on, working out which accounts to draw from and in what order, so you're not handing over tens of thousands of dollars you never had to. And then finding out that there's a conversion window. Those are those low income years before Social Security and mandatory withdrawals kick in. That closes for good if you miss it. There's a whole episode on what we call the tax control triangle. The flip to hold on to here, you stop asking, how do I grow this? And start asking, how do I keep this? The third flip, you go from offense to defense. For 30 years, you've played offense. Really, the only risk that scared you was being too cautious and missing out on any growth. In retirement, you switch to defense because now there are threats that flat out did not exist while you were saving. And 2 of them can do permanent damage. The first one hides inside Social Security, And it's a conversation most couples have never actually had. They looked hard at what the two of them collect together. They've never looked at what happens when one of them is gone, because on that day, one of the two checks simply stops. And the bills those checks were covering don't shrink that much. Whoever's left can be living on that reduced income for a very long time. And how large it is got decided years earlier by how the two of you claimed. The second threat has a name most people never hear until they're inside it. It's called sequence of returns risk. The short version, a beautiful 30-year average return can't save you if the first couple of years are ugly, because you're selling shares to live while they're down. And the ones you sell at the bottom aren't there for any recovery. Year 3 is the defense year, solving Social Security as a household and building the buffer and the flexibility that keep a bad early market from forcing your hand. Both get their own episodes. It's some of the highest stakes work that we do in this series. The fourth flip is what your money even is. For 30 years, a big balance was the whole point. The number on the statement was the scoreboard. Retirement flips that too. A balance, all by itself, now nearly useless. It doesn't pay the electric bill. What pays the electric bill is a dependable amount of money landing in your account every month. And turning a pile into that steady paycheck is real, specific work. So year 2 is where the strategy stops being theory and becomes a number that shows up on a date. You map the first 2 years of retirement month by month, not as an annual average, because the average is exactly what hides behind the months that break. You decide which account each dollar comes out of, so your tax bill is something you choose on purpose instead of something that happened to you. You build the income out of more than one source, so the whole thing doesn't wobble when any single piece has a rough year. Plus, the unglamorous execution, consolidating the scattered accounts, setting up withholding, clearing the paperwork before day 1. There's a full episode on the month-by-month exercise alone. It's genuinely one of the most useful things a pre-retiree can do. Flip 5 and 6, you go from decider to operator, then builder to truster. The last flip is the biggest one because it isn't about your money at all. It's about you, and it happens in 2 steps. The first step is year 1, where you stop being the person who makes the decisions and become the person who runs the system. The big calls are all behind you. This year is about proving it works and switching it on. You take your retirement income for a test drive while you're still drawing a salary as a net underneath you, living on the real number for a few months to catch whatever doesn't fit, while it's still cheap to fix. You automate the machinery so that the income just arrives without you touching it. You lock Social Security in with a real backup in case life swerves, and you handle the calendar traps. Miss a Medicare enrollment window and it costs you permanently. There's a whole year 1 episode, and there's more than people expect when they're still standing 3 years out. And then the final flip, which is the hardest one, lands the morning after you retire. For 30 years, your job was to act, to save, to contribute, to do something. Now your job is mostly not to act, to let the structure you spent 5 years building actually do the work you built it for. That first year tends to feel turbulent, even when absolutely nothing is wrong. There's no paycheck softening the swings anymore, and every alarming headline suddenly feels like it's about you personally. Here's the part worth burning in. In a well-built plan, the real danger that first year usually isn't the market at all. It's the temptation to reach in and override a plan that's working just fine. So the whole job flips one last time, from building the thing to trusting the thing. We've got an episode on that first year too, because learning to trust what you built turns out to be its own skill. So that's the map. 6 rules that flip: time, the goal, your stance, what your money is, your role, and finally you. 5 years to learn the new ones before you need them, and a first year of retirement to trust that you did. Every one of those flips has its own episode that goes far deeper than anything I've said today, because inside each of them are decisions worth tens of thousands of dollars and sometimes a great deal more. It's exactly why this is a series and not a single video. If you want to talk through your own situation, please feel free to book a complimentary discovery call with our office. This is not a sales call. It's a real conversation about where you are and whether we are a fit. No pressure, no commitment. The link is right below the checklist in the show notes. I'm Will Hoffman. This is Pre-Retirement Navigated. Let's get to work.